All right, Harry, take us live.
You live.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a power-packed day it has been so far. We spoke about the awareness that we need to create with relation to insurance and insurtech. We spoke about careers in the insurance industry, the use of predictive analytics and artificial intelligence, deep learning. But right now, we've got someone joining us, literally from across borders. Ibeth Ramos is here with us. She is someone that's extremely accomplished. She is the director at Innovation Coaching, where she's the lead innovation coach and facilitator at Cookhouse Labs. And she's going to be talking to us about how to innovate in the insurance industry. So over to you, Ibeth. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, good day, everyone. Excited and happy to be here with you, sharing this space. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for the invite. And thank you all for being you and showing up. So, yes, my name is Ibeth Ramos, and I'm here today to talk about how to innovate in the insurance industry. So, let's get started. A little bit about me and who I am. As I said, name Ibeth Ramos. I am originally from Mexico. I say that because people often try to guess where I'm from. I'll make it easy. That's where I'm from. I am the head innovation coach and program director at Cookhouse Labs. But there's a lot more about me, and there's a lot more to me. And I just want to tell you a little bit about me. So I am a certified coach for innovators. What that means is I'm specifically trained on how to speak to innovators, design thinkers, and people that are disruptors in the industry. There's a specific mindset, a specific perspective, a specific way of looking at things when you are an innovator or when you want to become an innovator. And that's important. A lot of people say, I want to innovate, I want to create a team of innovators. And it's not as easy as appointing people and bringing them on board. There's a specific mindset that comes with that, a specific way of behaving, a specific set of beliefs that come with that. And for that, I trained on how to speak and how to invite that part of people that want to become innovators to come out and shine. I am a certified professional coach, a design thinking facilitator and trainer, motivational speaker, and creative mindset coach. Creativity is definitely something that's important in innovation, so it does help to bring that out to the board. So just to give you a glimpse of what we're going to be doing this time that we're going to be spending together is I'm going to talk about Cookhouse Labs, just give you an idea of who we are and what we do. Talk about innovation and insurance, what is happening there, and then what design thinking is. How does this tool, does this methodology actually help you? Why is it important to know or to utilize this tool in your everyday work? And then, of course, walk you through it on how it actually works so that you can start implementing at least the first two steps of design thinking. And I'll be open to any questions that you may have. So let's get started. How to innovate in the insurance industry. Let's talk a little bit about why we at Cookhouse Labs decided to do this whole thing about innovation. The insurance industry, at least where we stand and how we see it and where we are from here in Canada or even in Germany where I lived or in the UK, it's always been a very traditional conservative industry. So we decided to come together and build Cookhouse Labs with the whole purpose of designing and creating, sharing and collaborating, and accelerating innovation and prototyping for digital experiences. We wanted to create a holistic digital insurance ecosystem and a customer experience. So that was important for us. That still is important for us. Why would we want to do that? Well, our vision is to foster and encourage co-creation, ideation, generation of new ideas, of new businesses, with new business models, products, and services for the life insurance, health insurance, and P&C. Our insurance industry, as I said before, has become very comfortable in a lot of areas. So we figured if we come together, we spice it up a little bit, we can aim to collectively develop a new ecosystem of digital excellence and strive to make our insurance experiences even better, not just for our customers, but also for the people that work in insurance, for people that are passionate about helping others and being of service. You can learn more about our services, our memberships, and about every little thing that we do in terms of events that we have. And you can visit the website for more information. But what I can tell you is the whole process of CxO Labs is to look at a challenge that the industry is facing, expand on that challenge, and bring it onto our CxO Labs space. And through that, through collaboration, through sharing ideas, come up with possible solutions that can actually solve that challenge. And then together, vote on a solution that is most feasible, most efficient, most human-centric, and create an MVP of that. I mean, MVP is a minimum viable product, but that can also be a minimum viable concept or experience. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more in detail about that once we talk about design thinking. And then, of course, once we go out and test that product, that minimum viable, that prototype really, we can then decide how and when and who to partner with to develop this product or this service that we want to put out into the market. So this is basically the cycle that we go through at CxO Labs. And yeah, there you go, a little bit about us. So why is this important? We talk a lot about technology, we talk a lot about digital, and right now one of the key words happening all over the world that I see is customer experience. And what is happening in our vision at CxO Labs is that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. And we see that even through how the markets work. You know, what might be innovative in Mexico may already have been working in a country like Germany. However, there might be areas or certain features of a solution in Mexico that have not even been considered in Germany because they didn't need it. Germany didn't need it. That customer didn't need it. And it can be the same thing for any country. We can look at Canada and Pakistan. We can look at Venezuela and India. There's a lot of different factors that play into the human experience, the human basic needs. Not the human basic needs of survival, those are the same in all, but the human basic needs of insurance, or sometimes the lack of education, the lack of understanding. And now it's becoming more familiar. So when people say, oh, we'll do that, you know, it's not here yet. It's already here somewhere. The future is already here somewhere. It just happens that we haven't needed it in our immediate market or surroundings yet. But it will come. Everything is shifting right now, more and more. So one of the things that we've noticed more than anything is our insurance industry and what's happening to it. It is actually transitioning from being a passive risk taker to becoming more of an active risk manager. Instead of just sitting there waiting for a claim to come in, the industry is wanting more and more to go out and mitigate this risk, educate people. And we've all heard the success story of Vitality from South Africa and how that was, how grateful people were that actually their provider created a solution that actually educates them about their way of living, their lifestyle. And why is that important? Well, because now we're making a shift from being product providers to being service providers. And the reason for that is if we think about the history of insurance and why it was created in the first place, it was all about being a societal benefit. Viking times, ships, cargo, ocean. Does that ring a bell a little? It was all about community. It's about ensuring that people were going to be okay. What has happened is a lot has shifted over decades, and people nowadays don't really like or trust insurance. And that's a hard truth, but it's a truth. And it's not just coming from a perspective of mine, it's coming from throughout the 5 years that we've been doing projects at CxO Labs. The first thing that we ask people when we go out and meet them out on the streets, out on focus groups, is what comes to mind when you see or when you hear the word insurance. And the first words that come to mind are thieves, greedy people, impossible, they never want to help. And those are not the kind of words we want to be described as. At least I don't. So the organizations that we work with, the members of CxO Labs, feel the same way. They don't want to be seen that way. So they're shifting to becoming more human-centric. Now, interestingly enough, keyword here that I said is the members at CxO Labs. So there's a few members, a few organizations that have become members of CxO Labs that want to shift that perspective, that want to shift that way of thinking. However, if you ask CEOs if they believe their experience, their customer experience is superior, 80% of them would say yes. The truth is, when you ask the customers if they believe those services are superior, only 8% would actually say yes. So there's a big gap right there that we that exists, that some people don't like to accept, but it's the truth. It's out there. And reflect. Don't let me just put those numbers out there and you accept them. Reflect on the businesses, on your insurance providers, on even your financial service. How many people have these promotions, these commercials talking about how the customer is best treated, number one, la la la, and how many of us have had that opportunity or that experience where you go to this business where they promised amazing experience, amazing customer support, and it wasn't that. And it doesn't take much for someone to do something that will impact the customer experience in a negative way. And the reason for that is the human experience, the human factor. Usually when we think about insurance specifically, we go to insurance when we're having a not so pleasant experience. That's when we go to insurance. And if the customer experience is not created to really benefit the customer, the human, then it does become pretty negative. I personally have had good experiences with insurance, and the insurance I related to is pet insurance. You may have noticed in my background I have a dog. That's just one of the three I have. I have 2 cats as well. But I remember back in 2011, one of my dogs was ill, and I had to take him to the vet, and I've always still do pet insurance. And the surgery they quoted me a pretty high price. It was in the UK, in England. And I didn't think twice about it. I said, yes, do the surgery. Unfortunately, the little one was not well and his cancer was pretty advanced, so he passed away. However, I didn't have to think twice. I didn't have to reflect on is his life worth paying that much money, because I knew I had insurance. And the process of it, when I submitted the claim, the insurance did not once question anything. They didn't give me a hard time about it. They were very pleasant. They sent a letter asking when I was ready to talk about the next steps of how to, what to do with my pet. Um, they gave me options for, cremation and different varieties of that and their boxes. Then when everything was complete, they sent a card sharing how they felt and acknowledging that this was a hard time for me. And a lot of people are like, yeah, well, it's an animal, whatever. But for some of us that are pet owners, these are not just animals, these are our family members. These are close friends that we have. So for me, as a customer, see, the people on the other end were not like, oh, this lady's crazy. What is she thinking? They did not put their judgment before. They thought, what does she need? What does this mean to her, the customer, the human? And how can we honor that, acknowledge that, and make this experience even better for her, which is already not a pleasant one. So when we think about that, just reflect and look around how many organizations, how many businesses actually honor that. And that's what we're talking about here. This experience gap that is clearly not fully acknowledged or fully accepted in some areas. Now, when we talk about innovation, Steve Jobs puts it very, very nicely. Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. And a lot of the times, in our industry, following is what we're most accustomed to. And there are different types of insurers out there, this mentality. You can either be an insurer who is a survivor, who can only focus on short-term performance, what's out there, how can we continue to just stay afloat. And a lot of those are actually insurance organizations that have been very specific and have existed for many, many years because they feel like we don't need to change anything. If we just stay as we are, we've been successful for the last 40 years, we'll just keep it. We've been successful for the last 80 years, we'll just keep as is. Now, the next type of insurer that you have are the fast followers. The fast followers need to be very agile enough to recognize leaders and adapt. So the fast followers are the ones that see, oh, something's coming up, something's shifting in the customer experience, in the customer need. We're going to just go over there and make a change. Join that train. Get on that bus. When we think about, for example, microinsurance, when that came on, an agile insurer would be a fast follower saying, yep, somebody else pointed it out. We liked it. We agree on it. Let's go. What we really want, and these are the ones we're following, are the anticipators, the ones that create their own future, the ones that don't wait until the suffering or until the need is so large that something will come up or hope somebody would have come up with something. The anticipator is aware, is connected, is informed with the shifts, with the customer experience, with the human needs, and starts anticipating and creating this service or this product that will relieve the pain of the customer. I'm going to show you a very simple example. And everyone always says, can you show us more case studies? I'm thinking, if you don't understand innovation with this case study, then we really need to have a very deep conversation. And some of you may be like, oh, yeah, she's going to bring Apple. Of course, this is the best example of innovation. Some of us may love Apple, some of us may dislike Apple. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact that someone started with a music device, these little iPods to listen music to. And then someone started noticing that people were carrying that and a phone. And someone thought, what if, how comfortable is it for people to be carrying two devices? What if we put those two into one? Did anyone ask for it? No, but that's an anticipator right there. They observe and they say, well, what can we do to make this even better for that person? Combine them, here we go. Nobody went and asked, oh man, I really, really, really want to have a mini tiny computer that's going to be annoying in the future. No, nobody asked for that. But people noticed, people were now carrying little, laptops, which used to be heavier. And now this device to talk, and now this device for music. And somebody thought, well, what if we put that all together? What would that look like? And you get where I'm going. And up until now, Apple is still one of the most successful companies, and is still one of the most amazing or most positive customer experiences I've experienced in my life. I still know that right now I can get online and chat with someone live about my services, and they'll get on the phone, they'll walk me through everything to fix the problem. That, in my opinion, is pretty amazing customer service. Now, what are they? Anticipators. Yeah, but you're talking about a phone. I know. But this can also happen in our industry. Vitality. There it is. The difference is, or the challenge is, a lot of the people forget that just because we are insurance industry, we cannot be as successful as Apple. We can. The only difference is Apple was bothered to look, to pay attention, and to put one and only one person at the forefront, the customer. So let's talk about, what do anticipators actually look for? Because maybe you already are an anticipator and you don't even know it. And now that you become aware, perhaps you'll start integrating more of the innovation and more of the methodologies that you need. So anticipators focus on implementing digital leadership. Not just the digital experience, but the leadership. They focus on making digital business central to the organizational strategy. They reformulate products and services for the digital and connected customer. They encourage innovation in all areas of the organization. That's key. It's not that, oh, these are 5 people of innovation team, go over there. The rest of the organization, we do everything like we've always done it. It comes in all areas of the organization. They create an organizational mindset of innovation, such as Lean Startup. And I can tell you more about Lean Startup in another time. At Hookah's Labs, we do have Lean Startup masterclasses where we talk about Lean Startup and we walk through the whole process and guide people to really implement that, embed that. Anticipators collaborate with industry peers. They know that collaboration is important and it's not a I can do it all by myself type of thing. And they transform the digital workplace. So reflect on that. Where are you? How many of these things do you have? Are you implementing? Are your customers implementing? If you're a reinsurance, you want to observe this, you want to support them as well. So anticipators are out there innovating, are aware that there's different types of innovation. And I'm just going to go through them quickly, but you're going to have access to this anyway. So incremental innovation is usually the most commonly used, and it uses the existing technology, and it focuses on increasing value to the customer. So there's an existing technology within the existing market. Let's innovate. Architectural innovation, it's about looking at existing technology and looking at the new market. So applying skills and technology within a different market. For example, if you've always been doing life insurance and you only do, your traditional policies, what if you start to realize that currently in the last few years, when there was a lot of shift in our daily lives, pets became a very important role in people's lives, because all of a sudden people that were all alone and couldn't go anywhere had the company of a pet, and therefore their depression decreased. They came out a little bit more. They were able to go out on walks. They felt like they had a purpose. So now you can say, looking at the current technology that we have, perhaps we can expand and now look into another new market, pet owners, and see how we can embed that into our policies, because it's all connected to life. Disruptive innovation is really applying new technologies or processes to your current market. So you're disrupting what your daily routine is, what your daily processes are. And you bring in any new technologies. Back in the day with claims, the process was everything paper. Now more and more people are using devices to submit the claims. So that is an example of bringing that in. And then you have, of course, radical innovation, which literally creates new industries and swallows existing ones. So you look at new technologies, you look at a new market, and you go out there and you just take that. Now, let me be very precise. At Kuka Labs, of course, we believe in profits, we believe in business or creating and sustainable businesses. The thinking when it comes to innovation is go out there with the intention of serving a market, of serving a group of people. The profit will come from that. The biggest mistake people make is going out there with the mentality of we're going to make a lot of money and take all of this, because then when that is the focus, we forget the main key of innovation, which is the customer experience. So a lot of people will say to me, this is not working. And then once we look into the situation, we realize that either the team don't want to shift their mindset, they want to keep doing everything the same way, expecting different results. Or somewhere along the lines, they started focusing more on the company's needs and their rate of success and what they define success. And the more we look into it, the more we realize that customer need, the customer desire, the customer benefit is no longer a priority. And of course, if that's not a priority, the customer doesn't want something that is not beneficial, that is not useful. Look what happened again. We go back to the phones. Blackberries. Where are the Nokias? See what's happening here? So that's exactly what we're reflecting on. So Ibeth, great. Thank you for sharing all the different types of innovation. We get it. But how do we then innovate? If you're talking about how we don't do it right, how do we do it right? And that's where design thinking comes in. So let's talk about design thinking, what it is, how it works. The rest of this section, I'm going to give you the examples of what you create in each phase of design thinking, how you create it, and yeah, you walk away with some templates, some ideas, and if anything, if you can implement the first 2 steps of design thinking, you're already making huge, huge, huge progress. So let's take a look at what those steps are and how they work. So first of all, and most important, design thinking is a mindset, a mentality. It's almost like a language. So please open your mind and just play with the idea of what if I started using some of these tools? What if I did? Even better, holy moly, I am already using some of these tools. I just didn't know they were part of a process. So just open your mind and see what we explore. Now, Henry Ford says, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. We love that quote because it takes care of one mentality, which is I have to go and I have to ask the customer only, and they're going to tell me everything they need, and I'm an expert anyway, and I already know everything. But what happens is when we have that mentality, all we have is a limiting belief. In this example, people wanted to get from A to B faster, but all they knew were horses, and they limit their mindset to believe this is the only way we can get from one place to the other. So when you ask them, well, what would your solution be? We just have to get these horses to be faster and get us there. Mindset. So a lot of times, look into your teams. If you ask, hey, how can we make this product or the service, or how can we increase our engagement of customers? If your team members are saying, we just have to do it better. Well, yeah, but if that's all the solution they're coming up with, I'm not saying get rid of them. I'm saying it's a great opportunity to bring design thinking into place and invite people to expand their mindset. Okay? Limiting beliefs, limited mindset is what we want to avoid. Einstein says that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. A great example I have of that is I personally was in a marriage, my first marriage. I got married when I was 21. It's very common in my culture to marry young. And unfortunately for me, or you know what, it's not fortunate or fortunate. The reality at the time is the ex-husband I married was quite abusive to me, physically, emotionally, verbally. Now, Ibeth, why are you talking about your personal life? Because, first of all, this is a topic about human-centric, about empathy. And if we feel uncomfortable with feelings and emotions, then we're definitely not on the right path for innovation. Innovation is all about how people are feeling. What does your product make your customers feel? What does your product create? What emotions do they create in that experience? So if feelings are E, then we need to reevaluate the methodology. But going back to my thing about problems and mentality, I stayed married for 3 years, and a lot of people ask me, how did you do that? Why did you do that? Because of my way of thinking. Even though it was not pleasant, even though it was painful in more than one ways, I had this belief that that was what marriage was about. That's what I had seen growing up in my community. That's what was normal. And perhaps it was all my fault, because that's what I used to hear from the ex-partner was, this is all your fault. So my way of thinking was actually creating and making that problem bigger for me, because I was going through a suffering, I was going through a lot of pain, but I didn't want to leave because I didn't want to disappoint my family. I didn't want to be the first one in the generation to bring divorce into the family. I didn't want to feel like a failure. I didn't want to X, Y, Z, etc. So what got me out of that? When my thinking shifted and I decided all of the ways I used to believe, all of the ways I was taught to believe are out of the window. This is my new way of thinking. Maybe that works for some people. That doesn't work for me. This is not what marriage is supposed to be like. So reflect on your teams. If you're realizing that your teams more and more are struggling to come up with innovations, how are they thinking? Are they still trying to innovate with an old traditional way of thinking? Are they still trying to innovate with an old methodology and expecting different results? Think about your daily life, your relationships, the way you communicate with people. That is the power of thinking, the problem of our mindset. Now, design thinking is also defined as putting together an interdisciplinary group to figure out the needs of the customer and apply the art of engineering to create that. So it's all amazing that we have creativity and fun and empathy and all of that, and then we need to ground ourselves and go from here, creativity, to what can we feasibly and realistically create, and who is going to create that blueprint, and how are we going to build that. So we need both sides of our brain to actually get there. It's pretty powerful. I personally clearly love it. So the way we describe it, it's all about empathy. At Google Labs, we say design thinking is combining empathy to understand the context of the problem, plus creativity to generate insights into solutions, and rationality to analyze and fit various solutions to this problem context. Okay, but what does design thinking look like? I've seen a little bit about it. Show us what it looks like. It looks like this. It looks like a journey of 5 areas, 5 phases. The first one is empathy, to help us understand our main persona, not a target group, not a target market, a persona, one. Understanding that one person can help us really define what the problem is from a point of view based on the user needs. Then we move on to designing possible solutions, and we do that through collaboration. Once we design what this possible idea, this possible solution looks like, we move on to building this minimum viable product. And then once it's built, we don't just go crazy and put it into the market. We have to test it. We have to test it. To test, does it work? To test, is that innovative enough? To test, does it meet the needs? that were identified? And does our customer want it? Is this what they had in mind? Because a lot of times people will describe something to us and we're like, oh, yeah, we get it. And we build something and they're like, yeah, that's not what I meant. Think about giving someone a gift, especially those of you who are married or even have children. You hear your kids or you hear your partner describe this amazing gift and then you're like, oh, I think I know what that is. And then you buy it and they open it and they're like, oh, that's not what I meant. Right? Customer experience right there. So we go out and test it to make sure that we heard them right, that we understand, that we share the vision, and that we get it. So one of the things that happens is people will go online and Google design thinking and watch videos, and people will read articles, and sometimes they'll go to a workshop and then come out of there and think, now I get it. I'm a design thinker. And I always, or often, not always, I often remind people, but do you get it? I understand that you see it, your mind looks at it and says, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yep, got it, good. But do you get it? And that's a gap that exists right now. And in our insurance industry, I am grateful that there are people who admit, I see it, I read it, but it's not working, something's missing. And that's where we come in. The key steps for design thinking. Before you can go and apply it and see the benefits of it, there's going to be some key ingredients. And I'm going to tell you what they are. Time boxing. What is time boxing? Get ready. Make some notes. Time boxing literally means use time wisely. Be mindful of the time. I know for some of us it's like time doesn't exist. I come from Mexico. I get lost in time because whatever. But in innovation, it does help. It does help because time boxing, what it does is it actually helps you create an environment where the mind literally will be the most productive through time boxing. How it works is you say, we're going to have a meeting for an hour, and the first 10 minutes, we're going to recap on the last session and where we're at. Then we're going to talk about any findings. We're going to do that for 10 minutes. We're going to share what we found out through our research. Then in 5 minutes, we're going to all share a possible solution that we think might work. Then we're going to take 2 minutes to vote. And then we're going to expand on that voted solution and see how we can make it even better. And we're going to use 7 minutes for that. That's time boxing, allocating time for specific areas in your meeting and your time together. And when I said come up with 5 solutions in 5 minutes, most people are like, what? I can't. Of course you can. You know how I know? Here we go. You're at university or, I don't know, prep school. You're at school. Forget school. You're at work. And you are handed the task to complete an RFP. And they tell you, oh, we have 2 weeks deadline. Did you start working on that right away? Come on, be honest. A few of us will even look at it and start working doesn't mean looking at it and reading the questions and going, yep, I understand. No, I mean like really working on it. A week passes by. Do you sit down and start working on it? Usually it's 2-3 days before it's due. Or when we were in university, the night before the paper was due. That we sit down and productivity magically appears. That is the power of the mindset and time. A lot of times we believe there's a lot of time. We still have time. We still have time. Tomorrow. With time boxing, you create that space to tell the mind, tomorrow is now. And it's in 2 minutes. Give me 5 solutions. And it works. So time boxing is definitely beneficial. I recommend it. And you need it in design thinking. When people say, how are these people innovating so quickly? Time boxing. You also need a wicked problem or a challenge. We have a bunch of those. How do you define a wicked problem? Well, is it creating pain for your customers? Yes, there's your wicked problem. You need the right mindset. We talked about mindset a lot. Traditional way of thinking has been very helpful. We honor it, we acknowledge it. Now we can put it to rest and let's shift that mindset and come up with a new way of looking at things. Because the new mindset that you need, it's more agile, it's more open, it's more curious. You're going to need the right attitude. What does that mean? That means that you're going to fail a lot. And you need to have the right attitude on how to manage with that failure. Traditional way of thinking says we don't fail. You're supposed to succeed. You're an expert. You're supposed to know everything. Right attitude says, I got here because I failed many times. That's how I learned. Innovation is all about trying and testing and trying and testing. Not for your ego. And I'm not talking about you personally, but for the company's ego, for my ego. It's so that I can hear what are people needing really. How can I build that for them? So every time I go and I test my product and the customer says, that's not really what I wanted. The right attitude says, okay, tell me more. What did you want? How did you envision this differently? That is the right attitude. It's not personal. It's about them. It's not about you. Then once you have all of that understanding, you need the right design thinking methodology. And today we're going to go through one. And once you have that design thinking methodology, you're going to need collaboration. Because like I said, you cannot do this alone. You need a team. And it's important that you have a team with the right mindset and the right attitude. Again, if they don't have it at first, doesn't mean you get rid of them. It says you give them a chance to be coached, to go to trainings, and give them a chance to expand who they are and what they are. Now, in terms of methodologies, there are different types of methodologies out there. You can Google them. There's a whole lot of them. These are just examples. Some of them might be 3 steps. Some of them might be 10 steps. The reason I show you this is look for a methodology that works for you and your team. If you have a bunch of engineers, it does help to have something like Darden School, which has multiple steps, and then the engineering mentality can adapt and understand that. Notice how I'm not saying we're creating something the old way of thinking. I'm saying we're creating something for the user in that mentality so that it makes sense to them. But we're still using design thinking. At Kuka's Labs, this is what we use, this is what we work with, and we use it together to collaborate, to find the solutions to the current problems, but mainly to put ideas together, to realize that we can't do it alone. So let's talk about how it works. Empathy. Empathy, empathy, empathy. Empathy is the first thing. Why do we need empathy? We need empathy to understand the customer. We need empathy to understand the problem. We need empathy to connect, to hear what people are saying, feeling, thinking, doing. So what do we need in empathy? You need to be curious. You need to be open to ask questions and to listen carefully. You need to have great listening skills so that you can engage with the customer and listen to their story without interruptions, without you putting your 2 cents on it. You need a very high level of awareness, because if you notice that you are interrupting them too much, trying to teach them too much, then you need to know when to shift, to go back to listening. And you need to have an open mind. You might be very surprised. You might think you know everything, and you realize you don't know a lot. And for that, you need to be humble. You need humility. You need to be able to accept that, oh, I thought I knew those customers, but I guess I didn't. And that's okay. Listening levels, these are the tips for listening levels. There's many, many different models for listening levels. This is one that I really, really enjoy. Most of the time we listen from a downloading perspective. We walk down the street, go to the store. Hi, how are you? Good, thank you. Do we actually care? Not really. We're just automatically answering questions. But every time, or every now and then, if we go to a party, a social gathering, we look at factual listening. We meet someone, hey, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Good. And your name, blah, blah, and my name, blah, blah. What do you do? I'm a lawyer. What do you do? I work in insurance. Oop. Either we stop there and walk away, or we open our mind and expand. Well, the last time I did talk to a lawyer, it was kind of boring. The last time I talked to an insurance person, it was kind of boring. Walk away. Or we open our mind and say, but maybe this is different. So what kind of law do you practice? What kind of insurance do you do? So now we're going in to within, to empathic listening. to look at that person's profession from a different perspective. Well, I work, for a non-for-profit organization, and we provide services for people that are low income. Suddenly you start listening to them. Or people that say, I'm a lawyer and I defend criminals. I'm very passionate about it because my father was put into prison. He didn't do anything and no one fought for him. Now we listen to that empathic perspective. From their perspective, not yours, not ours. And if we really, really want to push it further to a level of listening of even more empathy, then we move on to generative listening, which is all now you look at how could we work together? How can we do something together now that I know more about you? And that's where you want to be when it comes to innovation. Listening to the person's story, your customer, and then expanding on what can you do in the future to make that even better. Now, how do you listen to these people? How do you get all of this information? Through interviews. So in empathy, you do interviews like one-on-one interviews, telephone interviews, virtual interviews, focus groups interviews. And it does help you to define the basis of the problem. It helps you to get insights, and it helps you to test out solutions. So those are the times that you do your interviews. Your interviews have to be very open and have to have open questions throughout the whole time. We all know about basic closed and open questions. You want to keep them open. And more important, you want to allow the person to tell their story. What do you do with all this data? Ibeth? We have a lot of data. Well, you come and you put it on an empathy map. An empathy map allows you to sort out the categories because you get a lot of information, a lot of data. You want to make sure you have that clear. Your mind has to see it in a clear way. So an empathy map will definitely help you identify. Here's an example of an empathy map for a claims management experience. It just gives you an example of where to put what. What are people saying, doing, hearing, thinking, and feeling? What are people's gains? What are people's pains? And once you have that understanding of feelings, emotions, then you connect empathy, right? Feelings, emotions. Then you can understand who are you going to be building this for? Who is your focus? Who is your persona? A lot of people say, but what about the target group? I know, but how do you go and talk to range 18 to 25 males? That's a lot of people. That's a lot of changes. I myself, between the ages of 21 and 28, went through a marriage, a divorce, and another marriage. I know, I move fast. Point of the story is there's a lot of shifts in people's lives. If you focus on one persona, that persona represents a percentage of the market. So be wise and be smart about which persona you want to connect with. Because if you can make a product or a service for that one person that represents 30% of your market, when you put it out there, it'll speak for itself because you already listened to that one persona that represents that percentage. Best practice for your interviews, always ask open questions. You speak 20%. You stay neutral. That's the hardest one because we always want to defend, protect, save. No. Stay neutral. Take in the information. Let them tell you. Be curious. Ooh, tell me more about that. Oh, what do you mean by that? Keep asking. The interviewee, the person you're interviewing, will definitely be talking most of the time. So by the time you're done with your empathy phase, you're going to have an empathy map, persona, interview data, survey data, observations, and assumptions. With all of that, you can now go into the define phase. Remember I told you at least two of these things you really want to do. Once you go and you listen to your customer, you understand where they're coming from, you can create the problem. An example someone told me once, the problem I'm facing is my customers are not happy. I'm sorry, that's not a problem. That's the result of your problem. What do you mean? Well, a solution, how do you solve people being unhappy? You go and tell them be happy? Doesn't work. But if you say my customers are not happy, you go and you empathize with them. What's going on? Tell me. Then they start telling you. Then you get to the root of the problem. When you have all that data, you come to the define phase, which is putting together, the problem, the root, the understanding. So when you're defining, you're going to need to take time to reflect, because it's not just going, interviewing, coming back, this is the problem. No, reflect on what's happening. You have a team, share ideas. This will help you simplify the problem. You're going to look at the current versus future journey. If we're talking about the claims process and there's a problem with it, you want to map it out. How does that current claims process look like, and how do we want it to look like in the future? Once you visualize that experience, you can really step back and say, okay, what is really the problem? Once we mapped up the journey, we see that there's 4 different areas or 3 areas in the claims process that are not working, that bring people pain instead of benefit. Which one of these 3 are the ones that we see is most impactful? If we fix that one, will it impact the other 2 better? Or is it this one? And that's how you can start identifying what it is that you need to focus on. So it allows you to reframe. And once you do that and you map up the journey, you actually get to identify all of the pain points, like I said earlier. So some of the useful tools in the define phase is a journey map to identify the gaps, the pain points, and a how might we statement to focus on the benefit. So a great example of a journey is, look at this when you're buying a car. This is an example of a journey map. What happens? Something happens that creates the customer to think, oh, I'm going to need your service or your product. In this example is the car engine has a failure. So then what happens? The customer starts researching cars. Notice how the first one is on the lower line, which is a negative experience. No one really feels happy when that happens. But people start getting excited when they go online to think, oh, I'm going to get a new car. Then they find a really amazing financial offer. That makes it even happier. And then they realize the offer was not actually true. So now people are unhappy again. So this is the way it looks. I'm not going to go through it all, but you understand what I'm trying to tell you with a journey map. That's what you want to achieve. That's what you want to create. And notice how on the top you capture the amount of time it takes to go from step 1 to step 2. If you can give people time, they will love you for it. So if people are thinking, we spent 4 days just dealing with this insurance company or with this process, it's horrible, they're not going to want to go to you. They're going to want to go with someone that it only takes 2 days, 1 day. Okay, so keep that in mind. So that's basically what define is. It's really looking at the journey and identifying the problem. And how do you identify the problem, Ibeth? Well, you write it in a statement that we call a how might we statement. For example, if we're talking about the claims process, a great example of a how might we statement is after talking to people and them saying, this is horrible, this takes too much time, I hate it, I don't enjoy it, I'm confused. You take all of those words and you create the opposite of it. So instead of painful, it's enjoyable. Instead of confused, it's not clear. Instead of it takes forever, it's time effective. You can say, how might we make our claims process more enjoyable, clear, and time effective for Jane, our persona, to improve her journey and increase her loyalty as our customer. So by the end of the define phase, you're going to have a journey map and a problem statement, and that's going to help you a lot. So remember, I told you my focus, my purpose was to show you the first 2 steps of the design thinking methodology so you can start implementing those right away. You can already start talking more to your customers. You can already start doing more customer research. Customer research doesn't mean go online and find a report and download it. That's not empathy. Customer research is going and talking to your customer. I don't have time, but then find someone. Because if you really want to connect to customer need and feel what they're feeling, that's the only way you're going to do it. You can get a report that's going to give you statistics of 1,000 people, but do you know how they feel? Could you see the pain? Could you see their smiles when they were describing what makes them happy? That's empathy. And a lot of us are forgetting that. And a lot of us are remembering that through connection, through caring for the customer, genuinely caring, is the only way we can really be seen as innovative, especially in our industry where it doesn't happen very often. Now, as a courtesy, I'll give you access to the rest of the steps of design thinking, which is going to be the design phase, and it just tells you what you need and why, and also give you access to what you're going to create there, which is just going to be a list of ideas, a list of sketches, and then when you create a minimum viable product or a prototype, in there I just give you the ingredients of what you need and why, and some inspiration of some of the tools that you can use, and some examples of how that might look like, and a reminder, of course, that yes, you are creative, yes, you can draw. If you can do these basic shapes, you can definitely draw something. And then, of course, remind you of what you're going to get at the end of the create phase. Reminder, of course, of testing. Go out and test. Try things out. Let people tell you what they need. What do you need in the testing phase? These are all the things that you need. By now, you understand my way of speaking. By now, you understand that it's all about the human-centric approach. So just a reminder of going out, testing, interviewing again with the purpose of testing. And then what do you do with all that? You come back, you find out what was interesting. You look at, your statement and see if there's any reframing you need to do. And then you make a list of your deliverables. Especially if you have a technical prototype, you can definitely collect all of that through that. So again, if you want to move from survivor to become an anticipator, now you have a tool that you can use to your benefit. And yeah, let's go out there and innovate. Let's create a whole new version of what insurance is and go back to the roots of being of service. If there are any questions, I know I'm limited on time, but you have my email address. You can email them to me. You can reach out to Insia, to myself, schedule a quick call, and I'm happy to answer anything. It's how I can connect with you at a best customer experience. Here's a list of further reading for your help, for resources. And yeah, last but not least, thank you very much for your interest, your time, and your energy. Wishing you much innovation and creativity. Until next time.